All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're unpacking a pretty provocative viewpoint on a man's role and, well, his value in society. It's a perspective that's built around one single powerful idea: competence. Okay, let's get into this.
So let's start with a big question. What is a man's true currency? I mean, is it his personality, his character, how much money he has? The source material we're digging into today offers a much different, and you might even say, a more brutal answer. It argues that a man's real currency, his primary value, is simply his competence. His ability to get things done.
And this brings us right to the core of the idea, something the source calls the burden of performance. The whole argument here is that a man's worth isn't just there. It's not inherent. Instead, it's directly tied to what he can do, his utility, his ability to provide. It's a value that you have to constantly prove over and over again.
Okay, so this leads to our next point, and this one challenges a belief that a lot of us hold really dear. The source calls it the unconditional love myth, and it takes a pretty confrontational stance, especially when it comes to men. Now, just so we're all on the same page, let's define this. Unconditional love, right? It's affection that's given freely, no strings attached. It's love for who you are at your core, not for what you do or what you can offer someone. So this is where the source really draws a sharp line in the sand. It argues that this pure, unconditional type of love, well, that's mostly reserved for children and maybe a little cheekily for dogs. But for men, the argument is that love is almost always conditional. It isn't just given to you, it's something that has to be earned.
And boom, this quote really just hammers that point home. The source presents this as a kind of hard truth, stating flat out, a man is loved only under the condition that he provides. That is a really powerful statement, right? It directly links a man's capacity to be loved to his usefulness, to his performance out in the world.
So, if a man's value is all about performance, how is he supposed to approach his career? Well, this leads us to take a hard look at some really common advice, what the source we're looking at calls the passion lie. Yep, you heard that right. The source argues that the advice to follow your passion is basically a trap. The idea is that it's not just a little misguided, it's a potential lie that can send a young man, especially, down a path that's totally unproductive and, ironically, unfulfilling. But why? Why such a strong word? Well, according to this point of view, the whole passion-first approach just fails because it puts a personal feeling ahead of what the world actually needs or values. It encourages people to chase these fleeting interests instead of building something solid. This can lead you to make impractical career choices, and it often means you completely overlook essential and sometimes, boring industries where real value and therefore real currency can actually be created. Okay, so if follow your passion is the wrong way to go, what's the alternative? Well, the source lays out a completely different path, one where we see how skill is what actually creates passion, not the other way around. This slide basically lays out the roadmap to what you could call earned passion. So let's walk through it. First, you choose an essential industry. Then, you dedicate yourself to mastering a valuable skill inside that industry. Step 3, as you get really good, as you gain competence, you also gain the respect of others, and maybe more importantly, you gain self-respect. And it's right here in step 4 that you find passion, not as some initial spark, but as a fire you build from the pride of being genuinely good at something. So you see what's happening here, right? It's a total flip of the script we usually hear. Passion isn't the magic fuel you need to start the journey. In this framework, passion is the destination. It's that deep satisfaction in pride that comes as a result of becoming really, really good at something the world actually finds valuable. So let's pull all this together and ask the big question. Why does any of this matter? What's the real takeaway from this perspective? So to quickly recap the main pillars of the argument from this source, first, a man's value in society is basically performance-based. Second, respect isn't just given to you, it's earned through being competent. Third, real lasting passion comes after you master something. It's a byproduct, not the cause. And finally, the advice is to focus on building practical, essential skills instead of just chasing whatever you're interested in at the moment. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This whole perspective puts a huge amount of weight on utility, on skill, on performance. And so it really makes you ask the question, is competence the only path to respect? That's a challenging idea, and it's where we'll leave it for this explainer. Thanks for tuning in.